it's gonna be a good one.
Absolutely. Yeah, you said to bring the heat, right? Man?
Dude, you brought the heat. And just to give you guys, he was so prepared, guys, that he freaking brought his laptop. He's never done a podcast, so he brought his laptop out. He's like, okay, Kenny, I'm like,
full essay.
I'm ready.
I'll show it to you after.
I'm like, I'm ready to answer all your questions, man. Hello, guys. Thank you for tuning in to the More Than the Numbers podcast. This is a show where we'll dive into the stories of people overcoming financial insecurity, showing the different paths that people take to become wealthy, and overall just how to live a more purposeful life. So if you enjoyed listening to the show, please show some support, give us a 5-star review, and leave a comment of your favorite part of the pod. Also, please share it to anyone that you know that feels stuck and that needs some uplifting or needs some help to get their finances in order. We're really just trying to help as many people as we can with these stories. God bless all of you, and yeah, just enjoy the show. First off, thank you to my boy, Tarek, Chaaban, day one mortgage homie, coming on the pod, bro. How does it feel to be on the More Than the Numbers pod?
Man, it feels amazing. I think what you're doing for people here is great, and I'm just blessed to be a part of it. Hopefully give my 2 cents.
Dude, I'm excited. When I saw your DM, man, and you're just like I want in. I'm like, oh my god, yes, dude. Like, of course. Like, it just like, because we haven't talked in a little bit too, and I'm just happy that you're here. We get to catch up, and then, just talk about our experiences with the mortgage stuff. Talk about your upbringing, and I just feel like the last couple of years has been a crazy time for the both of us, man. So it's like, I think tons to talk about.
Absolutely, bro. Let's get into it.
Man, okay, well, let's start off the first story, man. The first day that I met you, so I'll kind of set the stage a little bit. So, so we're working at this mortgage place, and I've already been there for a couple weeks now, I think maybe a month, and I'm studying for my exam/working our customer service role. And I just remember I was like, I didn't really have many friends. I forget, because I think I was one of only 2 students at the time in my.
You, Jack, and Ashanti.
Not Ashanti yet. She was. Oh yeah, kind of.
She was.
Oh yeah,
she was a little behind you guys in terms of like progression of like taking the test, but she was.
That's right. But it was we had a very small knit. Like you don't really trust people because it's like. You only trust the people that you start off with because you don't know, exactly. I've never been in a business sense. I've never, worked this kind of corporate thing. And I just remember that day. I could remember it like vividly, actually. I'm sitting at this corner table, right where the, a walkway's at. And I just remember hearing these people walking in. And I just hear this loud ass dude just talking. I'm like, oh no, we got another douchebag here, man. And I see you're just this tall dude looking real preppy, real proper, just like really the energy is just like off the charts, just like excited, like meeting everybody, shaking everyone's hand, eye contact, and I'm just like, this guy needs to relax, man. Like I'm just trying to study and work. And I remember just meeting you, and then after talking to you for a little bit, I'm like, oh wait, he's a great guy. He's coming from a good place.
Oh, no, I'll never forget that day. So it was actually the first day I was working, and I was hired with 2 other people. I don't know if you remember.
Yes, I remember them.
So yeah, the first day they had us shadowing Kenny, and when I walked in, they sat us down, and the one thing I'll never forget is like how cool, calm, and collect he was with the system, in terms of like the calls. So. The way that it worked with the dialer is that you would get a call, immediately would pop up on your screen, and within seconds, you're on the phone with someone. And I, didn't know how it worked. So when I saw Kenny was studying for a test, talking to us, and then taking calls as well, I was like, this guy's the GOAT. He's a genius. And then you got his buddy sitting next to him doing the same exact things.
Oh, that guy was a beast,
but with the radio voice. Remember him?
That guy was if that guy, he would have killed. I mean, I've still to this day haven't heard a voice like that, of actually knowing somebody, like you hear the radio people and stuff, but
announcer, he was crazy. But some people are starting to cut out for you. You can have an amazing voice, have all the confidence, but if you don't like doing what you're doing, you're not gonna end up excelling in it. But never forget that day. We sat behind him, and I was very anxious at first, but Kenneth was able to break down everything for me, tell me, hey, it is kind of overwhelming at first, but you get used to the way that the system is, the way the calls come in. And, you know, within a week's time, you'll be doing exactly what I'm doing, studying for your test, you know, to get licensed while taking these calls, getting yelled at by a bunch of people, and you're going to be happy about it. I didn't believe him, but, you know, mark his words, a week later, I was doing the exact same thing. And it's crazy, you know, how you pick things up. And at first it can seem so like impossible, but
dude, scary. No, but that job, it's like, it's kind of like it's sales and everything like that. There's no real training. You can only train so much. It's one of those, like, you just got to go in and just take some L's, dude. Like, that's what it is. And
I agree.
I think my thing was and the reason why I try to be real cool, calm, and collect, because it's already a very stressful job as it is. And if you know, tell the newcomers that it's a stressful thing, like, you want them to at least, you know, give it the try. But I think for you, you're the type of person, like, you would have just done it regardless. But you just never know.
It was nice to hear from you, though, that, like, hey, you know, I was in the same position. I was stressed. I was anxious. I thought this was impossible, but you guys are going to get there. I promise. Like, maybe if I'd sat behind someone else that day and not gotten that type of reassurance, I wouldn't have, you know, continued. There's so many people that were in our position.
That warms my heart, man.
Oh, no, absolutely, man. Like, you know, everything falls into place. Everything always happens for a reason. And there was a reason why I was put to shadow you that same day. I was nervous as hell. Didn't know what I was doing. Didn't know if this was for me. But that little piece of reassurance, you know, seeing someone that was in my position a couple weeks prior have that confidence and tell me that, hey, you're gonna be okay, you know, that really all meant the world and made the difference, bro. You never know.
No, that does mean a lot. And, like, that's the thing about it. Like, I feel like in going into, like, a business like that, I always kind of felt that my mindset was like, it's us against the world type of thing. Like, we don't know if these managers are really looking out for us. You just don't know. And of course, and I ended up being right about that. Like, you can never trust, you know, your management, your owners. I mean, you can always have good relationships with them, but at the end of the day, you know, their incentive is to make money, and their incentive is not to, you know, look for your well-being. And and I know, like, if we're in the same position, like, dude, it's like, we got to, like, stick through it together, because you need some kind of friends or bonds to get through that kind of boot camp, right?
No, I mean, speaking on that point, you make a great point there, is that you never really know who you can trust. So when you do end up finding, let's say, that mentor or that manager that really cares about you, really, you know, cares about your growth and doesn't have any ulterior motives for themselves, you got to hold on to that person, because that person will get you levels above in this game. And, you know, the first person that kind of comes to mind for that is Todd Handley. You know, you obviously are very familiar with him, but he was one of the most selfless managers that I have ever come across. Like, at the end of the day, the money that he made didn't really matter to him. It was his goal to make sure that we were as successful as possible, even to the point where he put our success over his.
Whoa.
And again, like, I really think everything, like, for yourself falls into place for me, because if I had been put on any other team than Todd, especially, you know, being a new loan officer, being the person I am who needs a little bit more nurturing than someone that is just like sink or swim, had I ended up on Keith's team initially, I don't think I would have succeeded and did the same, you know, things that I've done over the course of, you know, 2.5 years in the mortgage industry. So very thankful for Todd. And, you know, he was one of those few managers that I could trust. And, you know, I feel like you kind of had the same relationship with him as well. He really cared about, you know, your success. And
yeah, no, there's good people out there, you know, but still at the end of the day, you still don't know, because, you know, they still have to abide by the rules of the higher up, you know, so they can only be, you know, they can really care for you, but at the end of the day, like, they can't truly, you know, give them all to it, because there is someone that's more powerful than them. And it's like, it's just a tough thing, you know, working in that kind of industry and that kind of environment. So, but to give them all the credit in the world for them to still be, you know, nurturing and loving despite all that, more power to,
no,
you know.
That's a good point. There are some things they probably have to keep in the dark, because if they tell you everything they're hearing from their superior, there can be drama and things like that. But you're absolutely right. But back to my point is, like, once you do find that good manager that you can trust, hold on to them.
Yeah, no, I agree. So, man, we can go in, like, we could take this conversation so many directions, man. But I'm really just curious about, like, what led you to getting into that position, right? But before then, I just want to kind of just let everyone know of, like, who you are and what you're up to right now. So just kind of give, like, a little intro of, you know, who you are.
What I'm up to. Yeah. So my name is Tarek Chaaban, as you guys know. I graduated from UCR in 2019. And I did mortgages for about 2.5 years. And then after the market kind of, you know, crashed, went to crap, I decided it was time to pivot. And so since about November of 2022, I've been studying computer science. So I took this boot camp, which, if you guys aren't really familiar with what that is, it's essentially a private course where it's over 4 to 6 months usually, but it condenses 2 to 3 years worth of material into it. So what you're doing is you're basically coding for 12 plus hours a day for the duration of this course. So think about 4 to 6 months, 12 hours a day. You're putting in like 600 to 800 hours during that time. And they say it takes about 1,000 hours to master something, right?
Oh, yeah.
So by the end of this course, you're ready. Like I'm already building apps. I have one for a soccer app. Basically, you can search up any like club team, international team, all the players from any season of that team, and then like individual stats for each player. And then I have a cryptocurrency one too that has like live data, real-time data that updates where you can search up any cryptocurrency, add it to like a watch list, and then keep track of like how many you own, so it calculates your net worth and stuff. And this is all stuff I learned within 3 to 4 months of coding, bro. Like people in college that, you know, take computer science by the end of their first year don't even know how to put together like a basic HTML skeleton, which is like the foundation of any website, you know? I learned that in the first week. So
whoa.
Yeah, it's crazy stuff. It's a lot different than mortgages, but my end goal, honestly, is to be able to combine both of my passions. So mortgages as well as this computer science that I'm pursuing, and do something like financial tech.
Dude, wait, what?
Yeah.
That is so cool, man.
It's a long road. I still have to, you know, get my foot in the door. Right now, I'm going to be applying for jobs in the next like 2 to 3 weeks or so while I'm in Turkey, as I explained to you. But I'm not going to let up any job. Any job that I get, I'm going to take immediately, because that first job gets your foot in the door into tech.
It's a good
and
experience,
it teaches you so much. It's going to teach me probably 3 to 5 times more than I learned in this boot camp. And that boot camp was already very intensive. So that's what I'm up to right now.
Oh, okay. Man, now you got me more. Dude, just all these questions I have. Okay. Wait. So when did you first get the idea that you wanted to do like computer science now? Because it is a pretty big pivot from mortgages. Like, have you always kind of liked it? You know?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. And honestly, at first I didn't know why. I think at first the reason why I wanted to do it is because I saw so much success in my family with computer science. Like my close family friends, my cousins, my dad, a lot of them are software engineers and they're doing very well for themselves. And I actually had a friend that did the boot camp that I did, and he went from not having a college education to now making like 150K within his first 2 years of being.
Oh my god!
Yeah,
wait, so for clarification, so the position right now technically that you're gonna start applying for is what is?
It's a junior developer.
Okay.
So almost like you know, like a home loan specialist one.
Like a customer service rep. So the basic, like the entry level.
It's a lot. Yeah, entry level. It's not customer service rep because you got to know quite a lot. Like you can't just come in and say, "Hey, I'm teachable, I'm moldable." Like hire me. Like
you need to already have hard skills, technical skills, right?
You got to know like at least a couple languages, like HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Those are like the 3 main ones that you should probably know. And if you know you aren't at least fairly efficient at those, you're probably not going to get a job. The way that you show what you've learned is through your portfolio, through these apps that you've built, and that's what I'm going to be using is my soccer app and this cryptocurrency app to show them like, hey, look at my code, look at how well put together this app is. This is all the things that I've learned, and this is proof. You can put so many things on a resume, but if you don't have the work to speak for it, like a portfolio, no one's going to hire you. So
interesting. So it doesn't even matter really about how popular, say, your apps are. Is it just more for function, or it does matter?
So no, it doesn't matter. Popularity does not matter at all, because your first couple apps that you design, probably no one's going to use. You're not making them just to like make money off of them or become more popular. You're literally just doing it so that you can build a portfolio and show employers what you've learned during the boot camp.
Okay.
It was a pretty big jump. So the reason why I ended up doing it is because in mortgage I felt like I wasn't being challenged as much as I'd like to be. I was kind of growing complacent in my position, and I was okay with making the money that I was at. Most people, if they're very motivated, they make 10K one month, they're going to want to make 20K the next month, 30K the month after that. I felt like, I was okay with the money I was making. I didn't need to really challenge myself, and I could just sit with where I'm at and be comfortable. So that was kind of dangerous for me because, like I said, I became complacent. I was okay with being average, kind of in the middle of the pack. And I realized that, hey, it's time to kind of make a change and go into something that's going to challenge me, something that's going to force me to continue learning every day, be very competitive, take a look at my peers, see what they're doing different, and kind of apply that to my own mannerisms and stuff like that. So when I did my research, I realized that computer science is probably going to be something that's going to allow me to do all those things. Also, plus size, you make quite a lot of money. But it's also
more stable too.
Yeah, and that's another point is I didn't want to be market dependent anymore. So that's really the reason for the shift. And I don't know if it's gonna pay off quite yet, but we're still in the initial stages.
Hey man, like I love that. and I didn't even know that you were doing this. And I think that just speaks more to like why I think we connect so well is because we have a very long-term perspective, and it's all about, you don't really know the plans too much of what you're getting into right now. You know a little bit that you're going to get into like that kind of job, but like overall you're looking to add more skills, you're looking to grow yourself, push yourself to a little bit more in something else. Because mortgages, like I always talk to like my friends about this, like once you have the experience of it, you can always go back.
Exactly.
You can always go back to sales role, easy. You can find another place. They'll hire you like this, especially with your numbers, especially with the experience that we've had and the boot camp. Like we know all of how it works. So that's forever. It doesn't go away.
Exactly.
So you can always jump back in, but now it's like you're taking on something completely different and challenging yourself with that. And I think that's commendable, man. Like not many people are down to take risks. And I think it'll pay off because, yeah, you can combine those things together, build it exactly how you want, and then, yeah, because only you have the perspective of, working in the mortgage and doing tech. There's not many people having those two things. So, the two apps that you created, you said were soccer and soccer, crypto,
and that's it. Those are two. The first one that I created was the cryptocurrency one, and that was only like 4 weeks into learning how to code, so that one isn't nearly as nice. But my FIFA one, the soccer one, I'll show it to you sometime, but that one is levels like above. You can see a huge difference, even though it's only like a month gap from when I created them. But yeah, I'm really proud of them. It's like when you first start working on them, it's literally just a blank screen and no lines of code. Now I have over thousands of lines of code and like 4 different pages. You can click and look at different teams, different players. Like it's crazy to me. When I step back and look at it, I'm just like,
it created this dude from a nothing, right?
Yeah, because it seems just like such an uphill battle from the beginning, and you start thinking so far ahead, like how am I gonna do this thing in like my 9th feature when I haven't even started the first one? And you just get in your head so much, but you just gotta take everything a day at a time, believe in yourself, and really just like have a passion for the things that you do, and everything will fall into place.
Do you look at apps differently now? Any kind of app you look at?
Every app I look at, I'm so like analytical. I'm like, oh, I would have done that menu button so much better. Like, who developed this? Like, sometimes I'll look at websites and it's crazy because like this is only a couple months in, but you start critiquing everyone. You're like, because you learn so much, So, but yeah, it's a good point. Like every time I look at an app or like a website, I'm like, that should have been done differently.
I think you shouldn't lose that, man. Don't lose that because like kind of like us with sales, right? Like we start losing ourselves because of some certain type of training and stuff. But like I think that curiosity, that creativity, and like, no, I could fix this. Like that is the stuff that really, really elevates you. So, man, I'm excited to see like your progression with the apps, and maybe you got my More Than Numbers app, man, with later on.
I got you, brother. When I get good, I definitely got you. I mean, it only takes like a week to put together. So
no way.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
So is that boot camp now? Is that something anyone could do, or do you need a degree? Like how did that work?
Yeah, so there's really very low barriers to entry. So this is how you know if you're getting yourself into a good boot camp is they'll make you take like an assessment at first. And the assessment, if it's like really basic to where like anyone can pass it, you know that they only want to get you in there for your money because they don't care if you're going to pass or not.
So there's a bunch of these.
There's a bunch of them. And you got to be careful because, for example, UCI has one and you believe that it's a good one because it's under the
name brand,
name, right? But then after doing a little bit more research, I found out that it's under a private institution and they don't care about the students whatsoever. I looked on reviews on Yelp and whatnot, and like everyone is saying like they just take your money, give you the course, the curriculum, they're like, learn it. No instruction, whatever. And I knew there was a red flag because in the beginning when they were qualifying me to get into this boot camp, the questions on like the assessment were as simple as like, if the clock is at, like 3 o'clock, what degree angle is that? And I'm like, what does this have to do with computer science?
It's becoming more UCI hypothetical lecture.
It's just like so they can say that we have an assessment that we gave people, so that way like if someone sues later, they can say like, like we check to see if they're good enough to actually pass.
So not like a functioning thing. It's just more of
a So then when I found this new one that I actually ended up taking, it's called Learning Fuse. That boot camp, that assessment was tough. Like I had to study for 3-4 weeks before I could even pass it. And that proves to me that they care. They don't want to get someone into this boot camp that's going to end up failing because it's expensive. It's like $14K, $15K for like the 3-4 months. So when I took that assessment and it was really difficult and I barely passed it, I was like, okay, this is the good one. This is the right one. I ended up doing Learning Fuse and paid for that thing all up front. So
oh my gosh, that is scary.
I wanted to put like pressure on myself, because like I knew if I had my parents pay for it, or if I did like in installments, I wouldn't feel like the pressure or the money coming out of my pockets. So I did that. That way, when I look at my account, I'm like, this is why you're here.
Well, yeah, and it motivates you too. Like you can't just I can't just miss a day of studying, because it's like, dude, I have money tied into this thing.
Racks.
I have to get my ass in that. Yeah, man, that's funny. Okay, so and so you'd recommend then for someone who's like looking to make a career jump like yourself, to find a reputable, what it's called, a
boot camp. So this one's called Learning Fuse. There's hundreds of them out there, and you can research them online. But yeah, be very, very meticulous when you're doing so, because it's a huge investment.
Dude, right?
It's almost like going to the wrong university for a whole year. It's like, oh crap, these guys are scamming me, taking my money.
That's kind of cool to know though, that it's only $15,000 compared to how much are you paying at UCI for 4 years for a bachelor's, right? Because you don't need a bachelor's, do you?
You don't, yeah. But when you get to it, like, employers do like to see a bachelor's degree of computer science more so than a boot camp. But I make the argument that you're actually more prepared after a boot camp than a computer science degree, because during that 4 years, they're teaching you a bunch of filler stuff. Like, when you're in the boot camp, they know that you're trying to get hired as soon as you get out, so they're putting you like almost in the motion of like
workplace environments.
Yeah, you use like the programs that they're going to use once you get hired, like things like GitHub. That's where you turn in all your assignments, all the work that you're doing. But they like get you prepared for basically the professional work life. When you graduate college, you don't know what the heck you do. You might have like some knowledge on computer science, but when you enter the professional world, you're going to be lost. So I argue that you're actually more prepared out of a boot camp, but I think employers like seeing the 4-year degree more, because obviously you spent more time than someone that's only done it for like 3-4 months.
So, but that's good that you have now. We're gonna both. So now it's like it shows that you can follow a system. Correct. You're also getting the certification. So man, that's exciting. Well, you gotta keep us up. Maybe we do a part 2 when you're already
when I get my job.
Come in, you got your tech glasses on, man, and
you're coming with bottles of champagne, bro.
Dude, oh man. But let's dive in, because you have such a creative and business type brain. Like, I want to know how this thing got started. So like, how would you describe yourself like as a high school kid? Like, were you always a good student? Like, were you always kind of looking to make money? Like, what would you say you were in high school?
In high school, I'd say I was naturally gifted. I definitely didn't put in as much work as a lot of people, and I thought I could just like fly by and do the bare minimum and still succeed. And that's kind of what I did for basically all the way up until my like sophomore year of college, but I'll focus on high school for right now. My high school days, I was kind of a bad kid. I was rebellious. I was smart. I was in all AP classes, but the crowd that I hung out with wasn't the best. So I would find myself in poor situations, and oftentimes this would get me in a lot of trouble with my parents. So from right the get-go, as a kid, me and my parents didn't have the best relationship, because I was always getting in trouble. They were having to reprimand me. And this kind of ties back into like my parents being super traditional, right? They come from Syria, and they're used to a way of life there. So when we moved over here, super westernized, very different than their way of living. It's almost like a culture shock.
Wait, talk about that dynamic a little bit. Like what were like some specific things where like something that they didn't really understand but like was kind of normal in your house, but like other people couldn't really understand, like you growing up?
So I kind of want to look at it from an opposite perspective. So something that's normal outside of my house that my parents wouldn't accept
there you go.
is going to be like hanging out with girls. That was the toughest thing for me. Like my middle school years, like leading up, like when I actually started getting interested in girls, the most difficult thing. I used to have to like lie a bunch to be able to go out to the movies. And it's like stupid things that all my like other friends were telling me, like why do you have to lie to your parents about just going to hang out with like girls at the movies? I'm like, you don't understand. I'm from Syria. I'm Muslim. Like, we were totally different upbringing. And so it was just little things like that. And then, going into high school, I started, kind of getting into like partying, stuff like that, with the wrong crowd and stuff. And so
experimenting, man. You're being kid.
And obviously that wasn't accepted, and that was seen as like super taboo. Like, the first time that I drank, when my dad found out, he got really mad and wanted to kick me out the house at like 17 years old. And an American family, they look at you and be like, well, just don't do it again.
Especially because you're in Irvine too. I feel like where I'm from, it's a little bit more common, but still not the norm. But in Irvine especially, I think that's even a tougher dynamic, because kids were probably even getting started early with that stuff.
Exactly, bro. And it's tough. At the end of the day, my parents always wanted the best for me, but I think small things like not letting me hang out with girls and stuff really affected me, because it kind of made me stick out with my friends. So I just always tried to kind of like live a double life, hide my like Arab side, and like be as white as possible. And it worked out for a while, but after a while you just get over it. You know, you just want to be the same
Just
person
be
you are all
yourself.
the time.
Yeah, it's like that's a lot of mental strain, man.
Exactly.
But I can totally feel that. Like Kevin, you know too, man. Like of my upbringing too. I was so scared to tell about girls and party. Like I didn't do any of that till like after high school, till I was like gone, and there was still struggle of like trying to hide stuff. And this is not good. This is not a healthy relationship.
So your parents are similar to mine, you'd say?
Oh,
like
hell yeah.
in strictness.
Oh my gosh, I've been getting calls like, man. I had to check in multiple times during the day, text, make sure where I'm at, like, and I'm a firstborn, and my mom's born in Mexico, so it's like, she's very, very caring and loving, but I think because, and I feel like a lot of first generation families, it's very similar in that they only know how to parent like their parents did to them, right? And so like, especially because I grew up in a different country, growing up here, it's a little bit. It's different.
You know what's crazy though is like that's a good point, but that's actually not how like it worked out with my dad at all, because my dad had a super chill, relaxed life. So I'll kind of explain that. So my dad's parents were super rich. His dad was actually a merchant. Like a long time ago, he started off by just like walking on foot and like selling things, and then slowly he grew his business, opened up a bunch of stores, and just became this very successful businessman. My dad's mom, which is the grandpa's wife, she was always with him, right? So they never really had time to spend with their kids. So what they would do is they would send them off to like boarding schools. So my dad didn't even live with his parents for like basically a majority of his life.
Wow,
so
interesting.
He had so much freedom. Like, so when it came to like America and him raising me, I never understood why he was so strict. Because I'm like, Dad, you lived in France for like 6 years. You probably brought girls over all the time. You did whatever the hell you want. So my theory is that, he probably saw some of the bad things that he was doing, realized that when he has kids, he doesn't want them to do it. But it kind of didn't work out because, by him controlling me and trying to put on that intimidation factor, it actually made me rebel even more.
Dude, so, right? Yeah. And I just think it's like, and again, I know I don't have any kids, so I have no I'm an idiot when it comes to parenting. I know, man, a couple more years, man. But I think that I always hear this thing of like, we're really trying to shelter our kids, but like by doing that, you are suppressing this like thing, and they're gonna want to rebel more, and plus you're preventing them the experience of trial and error of like how are they expected to like learn how to date somebody in high school, in college, just magically have a wife and like know it's gonna have a good relationship when you haven't tried and experienced before. So I'm like, that concept is still.
I agree with you.
I think it's controversial nowadays, but I think it's like it's common sense. So like. Because you end up seeing, a lot of these people with, having dating issues in their 20s and 30s, and it's like nobody teaches it.
Yeah, I know. And these are important skills that you have to know. Like you can't learn without making mistakes. So I definitely agree with that.
Yeah. So, but just okay. So that's interesting. So that you were kind of like a rebellious kid, and when did you kind of just like get your shit together? Like, all right, I need to start, doing something. Like, was it when it hit college, maybe?
Yeah, I think like my sophomore year of college so I was a biochem major my first freshman year, my sophomore year. Halfway through my sophomore year, I realized that my grades are probably not going to get me into like a med school later on. So that's when reality hit, when I'm like, okay, I've just been screwing around for like the past couple of years, not really taking anything seriously. I'm, passing all my classes, but I'm not doing enough to where I'm going to be successful later in life. Like now I got to make a
med
pivot.
School, man, you need
Yeah. So at that point, my sophomore year, I decided to switch out of biochemistry and go into business. And that's when I kind of like buckled down and decided to start taking class seriously. And I basically went up from like a 2.8 to like a 3.6 before I graduated. So yeah, from sophomore year of college on, that's when I started taking life a little bit more seriously. And I feel like honestly, that was a little too late. I should have done it earlier, because had I been smart about it, I would have been studying computer science for my freshman year of college. And I would have been able to avoid all this time wasting. Now I would already be a junior developer, probably on my way to become like a senior developer right now.
But did you even know of computer science at that time?
Yeah, dude, it's crazy because when I did my switch, my roommate at the time switched into computer science, and he was telling me about it. But when I was looking, I was like, nah, I'm gonna do business. It's easier. I won't have to put in as much work. So even though I was trying to buckle down and be serious about life, in the back of my head, I was still kind of like, I still want to kind of have fun, not. And dude, honestly, it's the most dangerous thing you can do. Like my biggest advice for everyone watching right now, especially you young kids out there, is take your college education very seriously, very, very seriously. Like the major that you pick can save you decades of time. I swear to you. So computer science is a good one too, if you haven't learned anything from the podcast.
But I think that just puts a more emphasis on trying to find yourself a little bit more, right? So if you had done more work of like okay, figure out like what you like to do and what kind of maybe profession, maybe you've gone to job shadow or heard other podcasts or interviews of people in different experiences. Maybe you see like, oh, okay, now I see what computer science is like. Oh, now it makes sense. Because I feel like that guided, like, how do you know what you want to get into when you don't really know what it is?
No.
So business is very, I could see why you did it. I mean, not just because you were wanting to be like, it was chiller, but it has a bigger, broader scope. I could do more things with it. But yeah, I think what you're saying is like the specifics and the niches are like what can really, really benefit you. And now you're going all in on just like a freaking.
And you make a good point. Like, how do you even know what you want to do unless you kind of find yourself and figure yourself out first? But that's difficult at that age. You know, 18, 19, you're not thinking about that. Yeah. So it's a huge paradox. And really, I think it really boils down to the fact that my parents didn't give me like enough responsibility and obligations where I was too immature at that age to figure that stuff out. So
it all works out, dude. I
mean, I'm doing fine now. Like I graduated on time. I wasn't late. I got a great job right out of college, made, 6 figures for 2 years straight. And now I'm pursuing something that's even more difficult. So in my eyes, I think I'm doing great. Can I do better? Of course, you always have to have that hungry mentality, cup is half full. Otherwise, you're going to become complacent and,
But it's nice that you can reflect now, like now looking past it, especially just going out of what we worked in because it was such a controlling boot camp and like time just kind of lost everyone. But now it's cool to reflect on it of like, now you're saying like, looking back, you saw a moment where you could have really just buckled down and chose it, right? And gone down that path. But honestly, you never know, man. Like what if you ended up being a software developer or something like that, but you have no real world skills of business and mortgage, and you don't know.
Just failed, the crash and burned.
You don't know where it's gonna tie in later on. So I think life always just works out.
No,
man.
Don't get me wrong. I don't regret anything in my life how it worked out. But if I could go back and change one thing after I know what I know now, it would be to just pursue computer science right off the bat. But I definitely don't I love the fact what I learned in the mortgage industry, the skills that it taught me, the people that I was able to meet. Like we wouldn't have this relation. I wouldn't be on this podcast right now if I was in the mortgage industry. So, and you wouldn't have, this amazing house. So like mortgage has done a lot for people, right. and it's a great industry to be in. And that's why the end goal is to be able to combine those two things. I never want to leave the mortgage. I got tired of, feeling like a salesman when I'm having to sell high rates. And that's the reason why I initially left. But if I can come back and combine tech with it and also my already existing mortgage knowledge, like that would be the ideal situation for me.
And man, this is kind of off topic on that, but like I've been listening to a lot of podcasts and reading a lot of articles, and that's the direction where mortgage is going. It's going to be a tech thing. Like where do we see all these? We don't want to deal with people. Like we just want to do it online real quick, apply. Okay, and then now you have the AI. I'm sure the AI can kind of like
take over,
figure out, stuff, like I think if you can get in that early, bro, like there's something there.
I mean, you see tech,
and crypto too. I think
tech and mortgage is really weak. Like Encompass hadn't been updated for 20
years. There's no reason, man. Like
I guarantee you, I could probably design a better Encompass right now. And like, if I can make something more user friendly, like nicer, like you'll make billions off that app.
And they make it seem like because there's so many regulations and licensing that they can't redo it. I'm like, BS, bro. Like, come on.
Yeah.
There's so innovation happens like this, and they're still using the 1980s stuff. So that just shows, and that's just one portion of like. Of life of like the political. I'm sure there's some kind of political gain or business, something that's going on with these contracts, because it's like
I'm sure
what's up with these bad softwares. Like that's we could go on a full rant on that, man.
Conspiracy theories.
Oh god. Okay, yeah. But okay, so I want again, I know you kind of touched on it, but like going into now business at UCR, so you kind of buckled down, right? Did you know that you wanted to do mortgage when you got into business, or what was your kind of goal at that point?
No, man. So like kind of like how I mentioned, everything fell into place for me once I got out of college. Initially, what I was doing is I was applying with corporations like Geico, AT&T there were other sales positions, and then like claims adjuster for Geico, things like that. And the one thing that I found was that the average salary range was only like 50 to 60K. And for me, I was this kind of naive kid just graduated from college, and I thought, I'm worth much more than this. Like I should be paid at least 75, 80. So that's actually what led me to continue my job search. And I was like, screw Geico, screw AT&T. I'm going to start looking elsewhere. And that's when I came across and that promise, on that job ad of making 180K to 200K, as soon as you're licensed, is kind of what drew me into it. And so at first, as you may know, before the pandemic hit, in late 2019, that wasn't really attainable for someone just entering the industry. There's no way that you were going to get licensed and start busting out 13 to 20 loans, making that 180, 200K promise, right? But we got so lucky that couple months after we get licensed, the market tanks, the market gets much better. The pandemic hits, interest rates are at 3%, and that is so attainable. Our first my first month of training, I did 13 loans and I had no idea what I was doing. And that paycheck gross was like 16K. So, man, I'm a firm believer in the fact that everything, happens for a reason, because when I did management and I graduated from college, I didn't even know what a mortgage was. I had no idea. I was just job searching, and it ended up falling in my lap. And it probably wasn't going to end up panning out the way that it did had the pandemic not hit. I probably would end up finding out that it's not, you can't make that money that easy right after you get licensed. But God works in mysterious ways, man. And we got really blessed.
Hey, I'm curious to hear your perspective on this. This is kind of a deep question. So what's your thoughts on people saying, or maybe yourself is saying that oh, you just made this money and you got lucky because you were in the right job. What would you say to that?
I think that life comes down to two things, right? It's luck and skill. So luck has a huge part to do with it. And I think I'm a very lucky person, but you can be very lucky but not seize the opportunity. I could have been put in that position, and I know a lot of people around me that were giving up, dropping like flies halfway through the process, but I knew it was going to be worth it. So even though, I got lucky, the pandemic hit, but I was the person that seized that opportunity. I was the person that went in, made the money. There's people in my class that ended up making it. They ended up dropping out, and they were also just as lucky as I was. So I think you got to take your luck and run with it and just seize the opportunity. That's my perspective.
I love that perspective, because that was something I kind of felt, because it did feel really easy after looking back, and it's and then now working in in an environment where it's much harder. I'm like, oh, you have these bad thoughts in your head of oh, was I just good because the rates were low, and but you don't remember that. Yes, exactly those points. Everyone could have joined mortgages, and we didn't do it because we knew. Nobody knew it was going to happen. Yeah. We got in and we survived that thing, and I'm sure you wanted to quit I wanted to quit almost every day, and we stuck through for some reason, and then it exactly, you got to take all the blessings, because life's already hard enough, bro. If we got that opportunity in front of us, we got to make the most of it. And I was really happy to see that you stuck through with it, because like you were saying, man, people were dropping like flies. Yeah. And so but I I don't know if that, because that's something that pops in my head all the time. Man, was this house just lucky? And no, but and then I go back and I'm like, dude, there's no way that you can,
This house isn't luck. You might have gotten lucky leading up to it to make the money, but this was all perfectly planned and fell into place based on the actions that you took. Yeah. And kind of the repercussions basically of your actions, So you seized the moment, you made the money, and now, you're on your way to success.
No, yeah, no, I that's something I worked on, but do you ever have those kind of self doubts of stuff
you've
pop
heard
in?
Of imposter syndrome, right?
Oh yeah.
Dude, even when I was doing 20 loan months, 30 loan months, the next month if I did 15, I'd be like, am I losing it? What the heck is happening? And then you might get on a phone with the borrower, usually you kill it, but this person hangs up on you in the first couple of seconds. You're like, well, maybe I'm not cut out for this.
It's really crazy, huh? Dude, it really, and it happens like this.
Like that. You can be on top of the world one day, and the next day you feel like you literally don't know anything. And bro, it was a roller coaster like that.
That's what I think. That's what I think is what drops people out, is dude, because how much physical energy are we exerting the whole day? Hardly none. But the mental and emotional energy that's in sales, so any person who's doing sales, I look at it completely different now. Any person that's calling me on the phone or door knocking, I'm like, dude, this person
You're now I know why you sound so anxious and worried. Don't worry, bro. I'll hear you out. No, honestly, I sympathize for that.
I do the same thing now.
I remember when I was a CSR, bro.
It's they just want to have and sometimes just, even if it didn't work out, but just one good conversation, you get excited for the next thing, right?
For sure. Yeah, you remember being a CSR and getting that one nice dude that hears you out, and you're like, thank God, that's a breath of fresh air. But yeah, not everyone's gonna be like that unless they've been in your position before, I feel.
Oh, I was just talking to him while you were in the restroom. I'm like, is it? Dude, we've been flowing and talking about different topics. I'm like, is it easy to follow? He's like, oh yeah, it is. So I'm like, okay.
Oh, is it? Okay. I know we've been bouncing, but you could do your magic, when you edit.
I'm just naturally excited, dude. I'm just actually excited to have you here.
Yeah, no one's ever this interested about what I'm doing. So
really?
I'm just kidding. Now, people are, but sometimes. people aren't genuinely interested. You know, like they'll ask you, hey, like, what you up to, how you doing, and you answer, but it almost like goes in one ear out the other. You obviously care because it's bringing content to your show, like you're able to discuss it. No, well,
I don't care about the content.
You obviously care genuinely too, but
yeah.
like, you know, it's also able to have like a conversation and you know,
yeah,
have people learn from it and kind of hear what I have to say.
I really think that this conversation would be very similar to if we were going to go have a breakfast.
Like, absolutely, yeah, for sure. No, he kind of made a point that, you know, when he watches most podcasts, it feels very like business, right? Like the people that they bring on, and there isn't much emotion because it's not personal. So like, yeah, they're asking questions, yeah, they want to get to know you, but it's almost just like they're not reacting the same way that you are with me, where we're like getting emotional about it, you know, bringing in our family, our personal lives.
And that's why I think people, they like finance, people try to put that in a bucket in itself. Like, okay, I'm a real estate investor, wealth build, but it's like, dude, all of this stuff kind of ties in together, like, exactly, because it's, and I think just to bring that point that we were talking about, and because I felt the same way of you're making so much money, but you know, and if you just look at the whole world, it'll be like, oh my God, Tarek, you're killing it. You're like, wow. It's like, but in your head, you're just like, I hate this. Like, I had a worst day ever. Like, you know, it's just like, it's so weird. So it's like,
it gets a point where the money doesn't compensate for how you're feeling. Honestly, that, like, I'm glad you kind of brought that up because, you know, when the market started crashing and we're not making as much money, I realized that maybe I don't like mortgages as much as I did. Maybe it's the money that I like, right? And so that's why I had to pivot, you know, find a different way to go about it. But yeah, that's a good point, bro.
It allows you to reflect. Dude, that's the thing about it. Time allows you to really reflect. And I'm a big reflector. That's probably why I'm doing this podcast. Is because I like to think about that stuff and like, and then I just like sharing the advice too. But yeah, that's one thing that's like stuck with me of like, yeah, was I in this for the money or is it not? And for me, I'm like, money wasn't the top thing in mortgages. What I really did like was that we were actually able to help people out with it. But it just changed my concept because I was someone that was very much money driven and trying to make six figures that like once it got it and once you feel how it is and like in this style, it's like, oh wow, it's not really what it's cracked up to be. It's a little, it's just different.
No, I completely agree. And I actually was kind of writing about this yesterday in my laptop because I want to talk about it. But if I have an advice, you know, for anyone wanting to get started in anything in terms of, you know, mortgages, just a professional career in general, it's make sure that you're not chasing the money because, you know, we exhibited it firsthand is that the money was great. You know, we made a bunch. We thought we were having a great time. But the second that the money is gone or you're no longer making the same amount or the returns are diminishing, you begin to realize, you know, your true motive is it's the money and you're no longer satisfied. So if I have an advice for anybody, it's make sure that you're passionate about the thing that you're going to get into because when the satisfaction from the money wears off, the only thing that's going to keep you going forever is going to be your passion, man. So, and oddly enough, I didn't know if I had a passion for computer science when I first started. I just knew it was something that I want to kind of test out and check out, but I would oddly enough develop it over the time. Like slowly when I started working on my apps and, you know, getting to know more languages and understanding things more clearly, I'm like, I actually really like this stuff. Like it's clicking, it's making sense. And like the satisfaction, I haven't even gotten paid for any of it yet. Right. If anything, I've only paid money towards it, but I'm getting satisfaction from it. So that's something that clicked in my head. And I realized I got to stop chasing the money. I need to find something that I'm passionate for because in the long run, you know, money can only get you so far. Your passion is what's going to take you home. You know,
that is such a good point, man. And I think too, like what you're showing by your actions, and you're not even saying it, but that you're not labeling yourself as a finance mortgage person. And I feel like so many people like limit themselves because they want to keep this like title thing. Yeah. When in reality, it's like, no, like we're you know, dynamic people. We like different interests. We like different things. You like crypto. You like, you know, you like talking. You like reflecting here. You like going into computer. You know, so it's like we can do all these different things, and that's why like I'm doing. You know, I'm doing work with a nonprofit, also keeping the mortgage stuff, and then I have this podcast. It's just like it's just fun. Like you know, we don't have to. You don't have to. There's no point of like limiting yourself. So I think that's another good point of you going into and making the pivot and just going all in and like not really, you know, having any regrets about that. So that's.
Let me ask you something. Would you say that right now you're happier than you were, let's say 2 years ago when you were kind of in the thick of it doing mortgages?
Dude, I've never been so happy and fulfilled in my entire life. as of right now in this moment. Like,
and let me ask you this: are you making more or less money than you were making then?
oh well, right now I'm starting up all this stuff, so it's way less than what that was. But like, I can see, because I've experienced it, I have a different kind of view on money. And I was kind of talking to my fiance about this. Like I can go make six figures. I have the confidence that I could just go to a sales thing. I'll go make it, you know.
Absolutely.
But I want to build something organically to like where it becomes that you get freedom of your time. You're doing something that you love, and you have the income. And I think that I mean I could just be like this hypothetical thing. It could all blow up. I don't know, but you know, at least that's what I'm trying to go for. And I think by, you know, doing something that fulfills me with the nonprofit work and the podcast, and then also combining with the mortgages, I think with enough consistent action, it can happen. So that's kind of my view on it. Like, the money I know will come. I'm not too worried about like the day to day on that. It's more of just consistent, you know, moving forward to your long-term goals. So, and like, kind of like what you're doing, you know, with your education.
And I agree with that. Yeah, like, keep that passion, because like you said, the money's going to come as long as you're working, you know, super hard towards it, putting 110%. You're going to outperform everyone, you know, as long as you're very committed towards it. So
no, that's you just pretty much made me say like what the definition of doing this for. So absolutely. I appreciate you. Should, dude. Hey man.
I'm interviewing you. You're interviewing me, bro.
I'm waiting for your freaking show, man. You gotta start
You'll
that.
Be my first guest for sure,
dude. For sure. Okay, so now as we're kind of getting down to the end here, I have some questions. So you've already kind of answered it a little bit, but you kind of already said it. You wanted to give advice to people, but what kind of advice would you give to your 18-year-old self?
Yeah, I kind of went over this, but just slow down, you know, like, slow down, try to figure yourself out, figure out what you like, what you want in this life. And, you know, stop. Don't think about, you know, partying, having fun, because even though you're young and it seems like you have forever to take care of those things, only a couple years later, now that I'm 25, I feel like I kind of messed up and I should have been doing things earlier. When in my mind, when I was 18, I was thinking, hey, when you're 25, you can figure this stuff out. But now I'm in this position, like, man, I really wish in hindsight I would have done it much earlier. So honestly, slow down, try to be more mature, take on more responsibilities, and like, really worry about the future, because life passes you by very, very quick. Feels like I was 18 just yesterday, honestly, man.
Right?
Yeah.
It's quick, man. It's a scary thing about time. Like, if you're not on it and trying to, you know, go towards your thing, it just passes you by. Okay, so that was a good one. And then, okay, what kind of impact, if any, would you like to make in the world?
I haven't really thought about that one, dude.
That one stumps a lot of people. A lot of people don't have answers for this one. And it's okay if you don't.
I'll come up with an answer for sure. I think the impact that I want to have on people is that I want anyone that's going through a similar situation as me to be able to, like, see what I talk about or what I do and learn from it. And obviously that's not going to be possible unless I put myself out there, kind of like what you're doing. This might be a first step of it, but that's the impact I want to make. Is I want, you know, people out there kind of struggling in the same situation, or someone that finds himself at 18-year-olds, like, lost and not really knowing what they're going to do, to be able to look at some of my advice or things that I've done and be like, okay, well, I really like what he said there, and I'm going to learn from it and then apply that to their life and better their situation. That would be the best impact that I could make, I think.
Cool. So just someone kind of going through your path and then, like, just giving direct.
Kind of like what you're doing, man. Like, I think I keep repeating this, but I really think you're helping out a lot more people than you realize. Like, there's probably those 18-year-olds out there that might have been, you know, came across your podcast that are feeling lost and learn one or two things that, you know, they apply to the life and they can make it 100 times better.
No, so. I really think that's where the inspiration came from, is because I used to journal and reflect on those days when I was 18, 23, you know, when you graduate high school and you graduate college. Those are like very, very tough, critical periods that people don't have answers to. And again, another tough, critical period is when you're end of your employment, you know, of or your career, and you're going to make another pivot. So you need some guidance, and I always was seeking out some kind of story or some kind of someone to tell me stuff, but it's hard to find this info, man. Yeah. So I'm like, here's something, like, you know, by maybe bringing you on, you can say something where it inspires somebody or, you know, someone else. So
there's probably so many people out there in the same situation as me, you know, first generation American, from, you know, a very traditional household, kind of dealing with the same double life thing as me, trying to figure out themselves, you know, like, it's a very common story, and like, a lot of people, they just don't have the help that they need. Like you said, it's hard to find it. So doing little things like this, dude, you never know the difference that you're going to make. I think like this is going to create a really large impact and legacy for you, you know, for the
appreciate that. Well, yeah, the the real effect, yeah, if someone can really like, just one little thing they hear, right, of like, you know what, let me just go try this computer science boot camp. Exactly. It's like, I got chills thinking about that, man. Like, you could literally like change the direction of someone's life with that. So, exactly, and I love that you're so transparent and like giving the info here. It's gonna be a good one.
Absolutely. Yeah, you said to bring the heat, right?
Dude, you brought the heat. And just to give you guys, he was so prepared, guys, that he freaking brought his laptop. He's never done a podcast, so he brought his laptop out. He's like, okay, Kenny, I'm like, full essay. I'm ready. I'll show it to you after. I'm like, I'm ready to answer all your questions, man. I'm like, dude, it's not that chill, but I really appreciate your eagerness and like. Dude, you're killing it with this, man.
Hey, I wanted to help. You know, it's we're kind of killing two birds with one stone. Like I said, we haven't talked in a couple months. We're catching up, and now I know everything about your life and everything about mine, and we created a podcast, bro.
No, okay, so you did the advice. All right, what is your version of greatness?
My version of greatness, I think, is like someone that's like very confident, independent, and like doesn't really need anyone else's help, right? Everyone starts out a position where they're going to need mentorship and, people helping them out. But I think once you've achieved greatness, that level of like supremeness is when you are that person that's helping out everyone. And you're independent. You're the one that's, giving all the advice and, sharing your wisdom rather than you needing the help. This kind of goes against what I said earlier in terms of always having your cup half full. I think you should always have that, desire to continue learning and bettering yourself. But it's obvious that some people are just at that top level. And that's my perspective of greatness, is that when you just don't need anyone's help, you've kind of reached that supreme form. And then now you're just using your knowledge and your skills to, help people lesser than you become better.
Nice. So just, oh man, I love that. So, and I love that a lot of everything that you kind of say comes back to wanting to help, which is cool at the end of the day, because there's not many people, and we know, being in that industry too, of like, there's not many in business. There's people are just strict for numbers, for just making, big amounts of money. And, if you have to, hurt some other people or be greedy or like, and we have some specific examples that we won't go into, but we know it and those exist. So it's nice that we can be strong in our own beliefs and still, kill it in our own ways.
I mean, like, that fuzzy feeling you get when you're just struggling, you feel so lost, and then that person comes and helps. You're like, wow, like, that's great. Like, God. Having that idea, like, that I can do that for someone else later in life when I've gained the, necessary skills and expertise is, like, I think really what it's all about, bro.
More fulfilling than a freaking 20K check, man.
Exactly,
I think so.
100%.
But, man, Fire Pod. Oh, my God. Thank you, bro, for coming on.
Dude, thank you for having me. Hopefully, like you said, part 2 will be when I have my job.
Dude,
I'll come in with the champagne and I'll have more advice for you guys.
Champagne, briefcase, freaking.
Let's go.
I don't even know your brand shirt now that you're going to probably
have. I mean, we still rocking Supreme and stuff, so.
You gotta flex a little bit, man. Well, thank you all for supporting, liking the page, and commenting. Right, Tarek? You told me to tell the audience. Yeah, what else do you say to do?
If you guys heard any piece of information here that helped you guys out, that you feel like you wanted to share with someone else, or really just kind of interested you, then please share this, with anyone that you can, because we're starting off small, but you have no idea how big this can get. And I really think that Kenneth here has a lot to say. He's a very smart kid, and he just loves helping people. So if you can help him help people, then you're doing your job.
And follow Tarek's podcast when we get that release, when he makes his show.
If anyone's got some job opportunities they can send my way for junior developer, that also would help out. So
hey, there you go. All right, signing off. Thank you all.